Good evening, everybody. It is 11:30, Monday night, 12th of December. We're in a solo, far away, Scarp 1, which is a solo. And we will soon put our heads down to sleep. If I put you on this ridiculously long selfie stick that came with the Insta 360, then I can extend you all the way out there. Maybe if I lean you on the cooking pot might help. So oh god, I'm pretty tired now. Go back, Lassie, stay there. So yeah, so this is kind of the start of our trip on the moors. The temperature is plus 0.5. So it will be interesting to see, you know, what the weather, go back, let's see, to see what the weather does over the next few days. Let's see. It is forecast to maybe snow and be quite chilly. You know, we will see. I really just wanted to, you know, say hello and introduce you to camp and our stay here. You can see all the way out there. Ooh, with this now. It was quite literally at that moment that the DJI battery died in the receiver, so I'm chatting away and nothing is being recorded. I was talking about the walk-in, and as I talked about the walk-in the next day, I have added that in here, and we will return back to the night time of me talking after I have chatted the next day, but edited that in here. But yeah, so we got here last night, and as I say, I was walking along. There's a good track in the distance, and I was walking along there, and there is a landmark up there, which is a pretty good landmark as to where to, you know, in the dark or if visibility is quite poor, as to where to start your descent down this way, as it were. And it was so misty, I couldn't even see the landmark, and you normally you can't miss it. It's that close to where you're walking, and maybe I walked past, I don't know, but I missed it. It's very, very tussocky and grassy. I'll just show you just around here on this new long, so you've got all this grass stuff, you know. It's like this nearly all around here. We came off kind of up over there, and like I say, in daylight, you know, you could, well, I wouldn't say that you could get to where you want to go blindfolded, obviously, because then you'd be in the mist, but you know, in daylight it's pretty clear where I'm going. I mean, I've literally been here so many times now. It really is one of my favourite places to come, and that's probably why most people just gave up watching years ago, because probably got bored with me coming to the same place so much. But it's just so convenient and relaxing that it's just perfect for me. But even in the mist, I was crossing somewhere over there, and there's a line that runs down this hill here, and it's quite an obvious line that you can see very clearly. But in the mist, and halfway up, there's a stone, not a trig point as such, but there's like a stone, and it's a very obvious stone. You can't miss it. And I was walking what I thought was across here somewhere, and to all intents and purposes it was, because I wasn't literally going around in circles, but I was coming across here, and I crossed what I thought was an indentation in the ground, which matches exactly an indentation that's up there. And I thought, I've crossed that, now I can follow the line down. But that indentation that's up here has a stone there, and the indentation that I crossed yesterday in the mist had no such stone. So I knew that I wasn't at that point, and therefore I couldn't be for sure that I was on this line. And even if you're on the line actually kind of goes at an angle away from camp, so you have to know at which point you need to come off the line to head into camp. And again, if it's daylight, or even if it's dark but no mist, it's fairly easy to know where to come off, because your torch will light enough into the distance to give you a rough idea. It's not as easy at night, but you know, at night with no mist, it's still relatively easy. So, you know, again, I was having to come down, and I couldn't be sure of my exact position, so I ended up having to look at the mapping on my phone many times to get here, and I even ended up looking at the point on Explore, which is the Garmin feature. But I do need to do, even though I do watch videos, and I've got many watch videos up on the Garmin Explore, there's still features on it which I don't understand completely, because I put onto Garmin Explore that I wanted to get to the waypoint for here, and I sent that detail to the watch, and I must admit I couldn't tell what the watch was trying to tell me to do. Probably if I'd have scrolled up or down a page or two, I might have got more information. It was literally just easier to look at the Garmin Explore arrow and where I was, and just walk from one to the other, because I was literally like 300 or 400 meters away. You know, I was literally so close that you just literally just need to walk towards the spot where the arrow was. And I just thought, oh, it would just be fun just to send it to the watch. But the watch seemed to be indicating that I was 1.5 kilometers away when I knew I was like 300 meters away. And I think the watch was trying to take me up a path along here and down a path over there or something. And there is a way of setting up the watch. Oh, I'll tell you this. The amount of editing that I have to do to get my congestion coughs and congestion snorts and things out of these videos. That's probably what takes up half the time of my editing, is editing out coughs and bad congestion breathing. So yeah, there is a way of telling the watch that how to get you there in a direct line. And then obviously if you're in the mountains, well, that's obviously not what you need, because you know clearly you could end up going off a cliff. But out here, if you don't need a direct path, you know, that is quite handy to do. And I think I set it up on that on the Garmin 6, but I never set it up on the Garmin 7 that I've got now, or the Fenix 7, and I can't remember how to do it. So I'll have to give myself a refresher course on that, because sometimes a direct line is all that you need. And indeed, even if you were in a mountainous area, a direct line is still quite useful. As long as you use your common sense to walk around things, it's still indicating where you need to go. And then you just, you know, just don't necessarily go in a direct straight line, but it can be useful. So unfortunately, the DJI receiver ran out of battery. Now, one thing you have to be careful of is I like to take it out of the charging box and into my camera pouch, so that when I'm walking I can literally just, you know, attach it and I'm ready to go. The only thing is, when you take it out of the power bank box thing, it turns it on. Now I turn, which is now not working because it is flashing because the receiver has run out of battery. I turn this off to save the battery, and I thought the receiver had turned itself off because there was nothing lit up on the screen. Let's see. Because there was nothing lit up on the screen, unfortunately, obviously it didn't, it hadn't turned off. So that's just something I need to keep a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of an eye on. No, stay there. You got your food. You're all cozy for the night. You're gonna go sleep with Bubba's. So this is just using the media mod microphone. The videos that we do this trip will be fairly basic. My main fans, as it were, likes to watch my mumbling. And then we'll do one on the Scarp 1. And I may have brought the Scarp 2.2. Not the Scarp 2.2, the Scarp 2.2. I'll just give you an update. Oh, I can't tell you, but it's more than zero. So it will be interesting to see what the weather does this trip until the morning. Well, I would say good morning everybody, but that would technically speaking be a fib, because it's 1:30 in the afternoon and I woke up at about 11. Yeah, I literally woke up at about 11 o'clock. I put my head down about midnight, so it was quite late when I you know, finally put my head down, but I didn't get here until 7 odd, and by the time I'd set everything up and was settled down inside, it was pretty much like 7:30, 8, gone 8. And I wasn't really very hungry, but given that it was quite cold, I thought better to have something to eat. So I did that last night. I had one of those Ainsley Harriet couscous meals. So we're just chilling out here. We've had like a late breakfast. We need to get some water, and we'll probably have just a little stroll. We probably won't go very far, and we're certainly planning on, you know, staying here. We're not planning on going anywhere. I'll just show you. I'll probably do a separate video at some time or other on this Scarp 1. It's quite a nice tent. They've probably made a few minor tweaks here and there. So if I meet up with Southern Chris and he's got his Scarp 1, which I think he got like a year ago, then it would be kind of interesting to compare it to the original version. This is the original Scarp 1. This is probably one of the first off the production line. So this one is easily as old as mine, if not even older. And this particular model here, it does have a little bit of an interesting history to it. And it's not mine. I've borrowed it. When I was walking with Chris Townsend in Scotland the other month, I've known him for about 20 years on and off now. It's amazing to think it probably is. It probably is now 20 years that I've known him. Obviously, unfortunately, because he's up in Scotland and I'm down in the southwest of England, I just don't get up there and see him and have a huge amount of contact, which, you know, which is a shame. It's my first contact, I tell you, when I started walking, you know, just more than just around the local park, I met my first late wife, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately I met, but unfortunately she's late. Anyway, in 1999, end of, and Sue moved to me at the end of 2001. And at that point, I was just doing local walks around the playing field with a dog I had called Sasha at the time. And after walking Sue around around the bend, around the playing field a few times, she kind of got a bit bored and said, "Do you know anywhere, you know, any other places that we can walk?" And when she first came to visit me in 2000, one of the first places I took her to was Cheddar. So I said, okay, we'll try Cheddar. So we went to Cheddar and we did some walking around Cheddar, which would have been probably early 2001. And then as the time went by, we sort of got through into 2022, and somehow the enjoyment and the appeal of walking around Cheddar kind of got to me somewhat, and we got really into walking around Cheddar, and it was, you know, really fun and enjoyable. And we did that on and off for a couple of years. Well, we did it for, you know, many years, but we did it on and off for a couple of years. And then we had a holiday down here on Dartmoor in 2003, which basically consisted 1 week down here, one day doing what she wanted to do, and one day me dragging her across the moor, hiking and walking. And we went back home, and when I was driving home, I was thinking, it's not really that far. We can get down there in a day. We don't have to go on a holiday to get down to Dartmoor. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, and that's just an additional addition to the story that you're probably not interested in anyway. So during 2002, when we were kind of like getting more used to walking around Cheddar, which I'll admit isn't exactly, you know, isn't exactly Kilimanjaro or anything like that, but it was fun and enjoyable. And our walks got longer and longer as we progressed. And we were, you know, rather than just doing an hour or two walk, we turned them into like a day-long experience. And basically, in a nutshell, I wanted some advice on something. So I emailed someone at Trail Magazine. They replied back, which I thought was very nice, and gave me an answer. And I replied back to them, and they never replied back again. They just ignored me after that, which is probably the best thing to do. So I thought, no, okay then. So I thought, well, who do I ask now? Because there was no internet, no social media, no internet, nothing back 20 years ago. And I didn't know anyone that was out doing walking. So I just started reading the TGO magazine, and it said technical editor or something like that, whatever it was, Chris Townsend. I thought, well, I'll just send him an email. It's a really big magazine, technical top manager in charge, you know, probably won't ever reply back. And bugger me, like literally a day later, he replied back with a very helpful answer. So of course, as is always with me, I always have a follow-up question. I emailed back another question, and he replied again. And it's just been like that, you know, for the last 20 years. If I want some help or something like that, he'll reply. And we just got friendly, and, you know, we got to know each other a bit over the years. And that's really basically how it, you know, how that started. So like I said, when we were in Scotland the other day, and it actually wasn't my idea, it was a subscriber. It was one of my subscribers, actually. He said, why don't you ask? And he said, you know, if you get some other interesting equipment and gear on your channel, then that might help, you know, the channel grow a little bit as well. You know, people might see you using other things and that type of thing. So it kind of came from that, I must admit, really. It wasn't strictly speaking, it wasn't strictly speaking my idea. So anyway, I just said, Chris, you know, can I borrow some of your equipment now and again? And here we have the first of Chris Townsend's the first of Chris Townsend's equipment that I have here, and I must admit it's very nice. It served me well last night. It pitched easily. It might need a bit of tweaking, I think, when I pop outside in a minute, just to tighten it up a little bit. And I did bring my Scarp 2, and I was partly planning on trying to pitch it today, but I got up so late that realistically, and it's already coming up to 2 o'clock, so it'll be dark in 2 hours. So if I rest today, and then hopefully I'll try and do it tomorrow. Today's my rest day, and then I'll try and do something tomorrow more productive. Yeah, so tomorrow we'll hopefully do a comparison between this my Scarp 2 from about 20 years ago and the Chris's Scarp 1, effectively, from again about 20 years ago. I think there are a few minor changes from the new version to the old version, but I don't think, you know, that many. Anyway, I'm going to I don't know what I'm going to do, actually. If in doubt, have a cup of tea and then decide. I'll just briefly. I've got this. I found how to get this thing to work a bit better. So now I can be the ultimate. So now I can be the ultimate lazy bugger now, as if I wasn't lazy enough before, and I can now film the outside of the tent from the inside. So that's kind of a novel way of doing YouTube. I don't even have to get out of bed now. I can just sort of just have this selfie stick on the GoPro, and you can see everything. bloody sorting out my congestion. It's so annoying. Anyway, oh yeah, I might do a video on these on these things as well. They're odd things. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I think I can have a cup of tea. That'll take me to 2 o'clock. And then I need to do something, maybe just get out and stretch my legs for a minute or something. Okay, well, we're outside. We'll try this slightly longer selfie stick and see how this goes. We'll show you the Scarp. So we're back in our usual spot on Dartmoor. This is a very handy, it's a very handy place this. I like coming here. It's quiet. You virtually get no one here, especially during the week, but there's nothing down here, so there's nothing really here, you know, to attract people. There aren't all the tours, and it's not as touristy here, thankfully. So kind of let's hope it stays that way. But this is the Scarp 1, and this is the original version going back 20 years, so it'll be pretty much identical to my Scarp 2, which I will try and pitch tomorrow. Hopefully I'll try and put it in that space in there. I think it'll go in there just about, and I'll do a video on, you know, on the two of them. Chris has added this very effective, very lightweight one cord to that side, which even back then and still to this day you have to add your own side cords, which does seem a little bit of an oddity, but you have your one cord there. And as I've said before, I really do think that the lines that they supply are very, very short. Chris obviously hasn't changed his. He's managed, you know, perfectly well, obviously, but they are definitely on the short, you know, on the short side. I mean, it literally, that middle one literally comes down at less than 45 degrees, and if that area there was rocky and you couldn't get your peg in there, you know, that's and if you picture it much closer than that, you're kind of stuck. So that's really not the best design. They've obviously got these very long poles at the back that gives you good headroom, gives you good room at front and back. And I hear a lot of people complaining and criticizing, you know, the very long poles, and they're very difficult to pack. I mean, yeah, they're probably not the easiest of things to pack, but I always put my tents in the outside pocket anyway, so it never really, you know, it's never really a factor or a bother for me. I'm hoping that the weather will be better tomorrow, you know, and that we can get the other one pitched. So they carried it out here, and they're not the lightest of tents. The forecast for tomorrow, I think, is kind of similar to today. And what we'll do is we'll just go for a little walk, and it was really challenging trying to find this spot last night, because it was 7 o'clock. It had been dark like 3 hours effectively, and it's not just the dark, it was misty. It was misty last night. I mean, tomorrow is just showing clouds, so we should in theory There's rain forecast for later today, but not tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully it's dry tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon looks dry. Tomorrow afternoon there's rain forecast from 5 o'clock today, but it's about 4 degrees, so I think it will be rain, not snow. It's bitterly cold, even though it's 4 degrees. It's a very, very cold. It's a very, very cold 4 degrees because the wind is taking that down to minus figures, and it really is quite bitter. I'll bring the 360 sometime again. I've got it with me. I must admit the GoPro is just much more practical to use because you can plug your microphone straight into it. Obviously I've got the DJI mic here, and the footage that you take is the footage that you've got. And I must admit the 360 actually I think gives a much better perspective as it were, but you do have to edit the footage how you want it to look before you can edit it. So you're kind of like doubling, you're almost doubling your workflow. And then if you have the Rode Go mic, you can directly attach that to it and it's still invisible. And I do have my old Rode. I could probably just bring it, just for use on the 360, and the battery would probably be fine. And they are super light. I mean, they don't weigh anything, and I can use anyway. But it's still bits of this you've got to carry, and bits of that you've got to carry of a different system. And it's just a little bit of a hassle if you've got to carry extra bits. I'm carrying enough as it is. So with the DJI mic on the 360, what I can do is hit the record button, record the audio onto the external microphone here, and then when I get home, I would then have to first of all edit the 360 footage to the perspective that I want, and then you kind of got to then copy the audio that you take from here onto your computer and line it up with what you've edited, which first of all you download to your phone, and you then copy that over to your computer, and you then have to line up the audio track on here with the audio track on the 360, and then you're in a position to to edit fully. So there's quite a bit of messing around before you get to your last edit. I think for like something that's like really, really different, I think it's worth the extra workflow. But for me, just talking into camera like this, and just generally walking, it's just not really worth the extra time, to do that, unfortunately. And you could only take it to 1080, so you then have to upscale it. But upscaling, literally, I mean, that like takes like 2 clicks of your mouse. I mean, that's super quick with the way I do it anyway. As long as you're wrapped up, then you're fine out here. It's I've got a merino t-shirt on, I've got a shirt on, I've got my fleece on. I kept my wind shirt on, which I didn't wear walking in yesterday, but I wore it overnight. And then obviously on top of that, I've got my Paramo jacket here. and it's probably about 2 or 3 degrees, and I'm quite comfortable. Last night I think it was about -0.5 degrees to -1 actual temperature, but I suspect that the wind chill last night probably took that down to about -5 at least. It was quite chilly last night, and walking in I was wearing these Rab synthetic gloves, but they're still, you know, they're not windproof as such because they got stitching on them and all of that type of thing. So yeah, they're warm, but they're still not the warmest. So I've got some, they're not lined, it's just like over gloves, it's like over mitts. So I put the over mitts over these, and then when I needed to do something with my fingers, I could just take these out of the mitts, and I had dexterity. And then at a pinch I could take my hands out of these and do something if I needed my fingers, and then just put these back on and then into the mitts. And I really do think that that is a very, very good way of doing things. And what I like these gloves, I still think that, and I don't know what Chris does these days, but I still think that Chris Townsend's idea, which is in his backpacker's handbook, that really if you're interested in, you know, coming out into the wilderness, it really is worth having a nose through his backpacker's handbook, actually, because there's a lot of useful information there. It's probably the equipment and clothing will have moved on a bit, but the general idea, you know, in there is still very sound to today. And like I said, a lot of the information that I've gathered from walking, I've taken from Chris's books, you know, obviously listening to him, and a lot of it's from the long distance hikers in America. I think if you want, you know, really, really good information on things, then, you know, look to some of these long distance walkers, or to Chris Townsend's books, especially his handbooks and things like that. They're very good, they're very, very informative, you know, and are very useful for, you know, if you're coming out here. But the one thing where you need to be careful with these gloves, they have got a lining in them of some description, and I did notice yesterday that when my fingers were a bit damp, the lining, while it didn't come out, you know, it wasn't the absolute best. So the Wind Pro gloves, and you can get 2 different thicknesses of Wind Pro, and there's no lining to pull out with those. Now last night when I pitched the tent, even though it's the same spot that I pitched many times before, because it was so misty and dark, it was a very odd feeling, and I couldn't for a minute or two get my bearings as to where I was in relation to which way I needed to go, you know, to go and get water, because you've got to walk. My other spot, which is kind of just over there a bit, is literally next to water. So with that one, you can't go wrong, because you're literally next to water. But here, you do have to walk 100 meters or so. I was having to concentrate a lot when I was in camp as to which way to go, because again, it would be really embarrassing. YouTuber went to get water, claims he knows the area very well. I had to call out the emergency services because he couldn't find his tent in the dark and the mist. So I was very, very careful. I must admit, I did put the point on my phone, and I already had it on there already on the Explore app. anyway. Plus I wouldn't have got lost because I could have just looked at the phone. But like I said, I don't like to just blindly go off somewhere without a rough idea as to where I'm going and what I'm doing, even if it is something that I'm familiar with, because that's how accidents can happen. And you don't want to mess around with things, even out here, which, okay, it's not a million miles from civilization, but you're still you're still in the middle of nowhere pretty much. So like I said, it did take me a minute or so of looking at the vegetation around me to try and figure out which way I had to go. Anyway, I got water and got into camp, and yeah, had a very nice, relaxing evening. I left home. Well, I popped over to her mum's, and I think her mum would have liked me to have stayed a little bit longer. And my original plan was to, head off about 2:30, but I stayed until about 3. And like I said, that obviously meant I got here at about 6:45, and it was dark and misty, and I wouldn't do that if it was somewhere that I didn't know. I wouldn't go walking into the dark and the mist unless I was very familiar with it, because like I said, even out here, in an area that I'm familiar with, I needed I will admit I did need the phone mapping to be able to pinpoint the exact spot to pitch on in the dark and the mist. I mean, obviously if that had failed, then I would have, it wouldn't have been that difficult to find water, and pitch somewhere. There was, I wasn't exactly reliant on the mapping, but it was certainly, and I knew approximately where I was. So obviously if that failed, then I got the map and the compass. I always carry map and compass with me. I could just have taken a bearing, off to one side a little bit and picked up one of the streams. So, I mean, I wasn't in any danger, but obviously, but I was quite happy. I just wanted to get, whilst the map and compass is very nice, and obviously you really should have it as a backup with you at all times. If you've got the technology of your phone and OS mapping on your phone, and it tells you where you are and it points the direction of where the phone is looking, and as long as you can understand the mapping itself, because it's all very well the phone just pointing blindly in a direction. I mean, that's one thing, but obviously if you can't read contour lines and you don't know that blue is water, that's how accidents are going to happen. But this has been a very enjoyable little stroll along here. I haven't exactly done very much. Hopefully we'll try and do a bit more tomorrow. I can definitely feel some rain heading in. Looking at the forecast, it does seem to be about 5 o'clock that there's rain, and then into the evening. Oh, for those that don't know, I sent my Innovate boots back to Innovate because when I got home I filled them up with water just to see what would happen, and water, I wouldn't say was pouring out of them, but it was dripping out of one at a reasonable rate, and it was more than dripping out of the other one. One made a small puddle around it fairly quickly, and one made a big puddle around it very quickly. So I did contact them and I've sent them back, so hopefully they replace them, because they are comfortable, and I'd only worn them about 3 times, so they should last. I never really expect Innovate to last very long. They're not the best when it comes to longevity, but that doesn't really matter, you know. I get them for comfort, and I kind of understand they'll only last like a season, which I know is not really very long, but I don't expect them to last, you know. I don't expect miracles with Innovate in that, but I do expect them to last more than 3 trips. Okay, well, we have talked and we have walked past camp, and this rain is starting to fall a little bit more now, and the battery on here is starting to, it's down to about 8% or something, 7%. Good evening, everybody. The weather has taken a little bit of a turn. If I show you, so that's the inside. The door is shut on this side of the scarp, but you can see the snow is getting in there. Now, I've checked the vents on the top, and I doubt you'll be able to, I don't know what you can see up there very clearly, but the vents are closed, so I'm not quite sure how snow is getting in, but it's a good job that I checked, because I hadn't covered my shoes up and they're starting to get some snow inside. So what I'm going to do, and obviously when I move things, a bit of snow fell in from out there, so I'm basically going to cover my boots with Lass's pack. To be fair to it, I think the snow was getting in from the rear vent, which I had left open. So that protects that side. I will say, if you have a scarp, you might want to put little bits of string on the zips, because they're not the easiest of things to, you know, to do up. But we're fine in here. Lass is getting a little bit of snow on her, but yeah, I don't know where it's coming from. It seems to be maybe coming from underneath and flowing in that way. So Lass is getting a little bit snowy there, but I mean, you know, she is a collie dog, and yes, it's cold, but I would guess the temperature in here is not the -5 wind chill outside. So I'm going to take it that she's fine there. That's a lot of snow. There you can see the outside of the scarp and the snow blowing at quite a pace there. And if I angle it that way, and you can see a lot of snow there. That's the inside with the door done up there, and Lass is fine. They shouldn't even care. I've actually known her to be outside in this type of weather, to be honest. So this is quite this is quite luxurious for Lassie. Oh, Lassie. I've definitely seen you covered in hail and snow before now. So the time is, we haven't even got our gloves on at the moment, although it's starting to cool off a bit in here, but it's 10:30, so I think I'll try and put my head down in the next half an hour, and then we'll see what it's like tomorrow. I don't think it's snowing tomorrow anyway. Now, never let it be said that I don't suffer for my workout here. Well, there is a signal, and I did have a quick look at Facebook, and I noticed that it was either Phil Jackson or Richard Cavanagh or someone that I follow on this. If I've got your names wrong and it was Fred Blogs, then, you know, obviously it was Fred, but someone posted a picture of their weather station showing the wind chill. So it suddenly got me thinking, well, I've got my own weather station, the Kestrel 5500, and I thought, well, I ought to, you know, maybe, you know, and of course, because I've got the beauty of this Insta 360, oh, it's quite a strong breeze, I have to say, selfie stick. I'm holding it up in the wind. I think the wind is pretty much coming from the back, as it were, and you can see that that's pretty much the angle there. So we're pretty much catching it. It's had a few gusts. I'll leave it another moment, and I think the lowest that I saw on his was about -8. So let's bring this in, and we'll have, it's like fishing this, so we'll have a look. So what I can tell you is the temperature outside. Will the GoPro focus that low? I think it does. It's focused there. Obviously it's warming up because it's come inside. So the temperature outside there, and the minimum was 0.6, probably just because we brought it in, and the coldest outside is at -1. Now if we, I think you can see what's happening here. So if we then take it to there, the minimum, the maximum was 1, the average 4, and the minimum, you can see that there, 9.4, minimum 9.4. So that's colder. Not that it's a test, Phil and Richard, whoever you are, but it's good to know that it's something. I'm bigger and better. So we're gonna stick my pole out. We'll just make sure that it's into the wind there, and we'll stick it back out there for another few moments. I have actually got a tripod. I guess I could set it up on the tripod overnight, just outside the door. It's a little bit. Oh, that's a gust. There's a gust. Ooh. The way this thing twitches. Don't go there, Tony. Don't say it's like an orgasm. But the way this thing is thrusting and twitching and writhing in my arms. This solid object. All right, well let's let's bring that in. Okay, it hasn't really changed anything. You can see there minus 9.4, so pretty much the same there. I will wish you all a good night, and we will catch up tomorrow, or most likely in the next video. Make sure you come back again for the next one.